the show came right to you.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Okay. Are you sure your mic's up? I'm just making sure. Okay. I'm just double check there, producer, because I don't hear you as well as.
Question actually.
There you are. There you are, everybody.
Yeah,
welcome.
Good point.
Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Yeah, thanks. You're welcome. That would have been a rough deal had we done a whole show.
You got to turn your Yeti over there.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah. You're getting all kinds of direction now. Jay McCluskey.
I'm trying to help you advertise your little thing.
Yeah,
Don't blame me.
Sorry.
Jay McCluskey joining us with all kinds of. Yeah. He's just giving. This is like your campaign advice right now. You're saying turn your mug around that said, "Don't blame me. I voted for Ronchetti." So we get some
sell some merch.
That's right. Sell some merch on that. Jay, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
We're talking right off the top of the show about senior assassin, junior assassin game. Don't know if you have kids at home. If you do, and your kids are involved in this game that I cannot stand, because kids just show up at your house and they try to water gun your kid.
Water gun. See, when my son was at academy, they did it with Nerf guns.
Oh gosh!
But they suck. I mean, these kids, they don't play enough war growing up, and like they're terrible.
They're soft.
I mean, they're really soft. They don't know how to like get.
Marine J showing up to teach senior
I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, you kids have to learn how things really work in the real
Yeah,
world.
like
maybe
when we were
talk
kids,
to Ella.
and we'd go. They don't do that. They don't go outside.
Why don't you teach Ella? Because she's going to need some skills. Because here's my rule. Apparently, they can come in our house, Jay. They can come in our house when they want to.
Academy,
and I'm like, no.
The school itself passed a rule that you can't do that because they had kid almost get shot.
Yeah, so exactly. I'm like, you
like,
nuts
house is off
this
rule.
day?
But those kids that have to park in the garage because it's fair game the minute you leave the house and they just wait for you.
Yeah, well, she doesn't park in the garage, so she's.
Okay. All right, let's not take the show off the rails right now. So people who actually want to learn about something and know what's going on in the show, you talking about senior assassin is not helping.
Okay, all right. Well, we got a big show, so tell us what's coming.
We do, actually, with two huge stories that we're going to take a deep dive into right off the top. Number one is the Pope versus the president. And it is a fascinating, I think, back and forth between these two. We're going to dive into that. We're also going to dive into the financial numbers in the governor's race in the state of New Mexico. There's a lot we can learn. There is strategy in the middle of this. We're going to break down where we think each candidate is as we head down the stretch here for the last 6 weeks before the primary here, and then we'll touch on some other issues as well. But the biggest thing we're going to hit on is the Pope and President, and obviously those governor's numbers as well.
Okay, well, I think we should just jump right in. Leo and Trump going at it.
Yeah.
Pope Leo going at it. We're getting comments from our viewers asking us, are we going to start talking about it? Well, we are today.
In a very deep way.
There's plenty to chat about.
So let's start with Leo's comments first, because I think the way a lot of this has worked out is he's been taking sort of veiled shots and then some more direct shots at Trump. And so I want to start with some of his comments first, and then we'll get into some of Trump's responses and then sort of where all of this goes. I think it is super interesting, and I think at the end of the day here, I don't like what the Pope is doing. I don't always like the way Trump responds either, but I also think this is one of those things that, as you look at it, it is. I think it could be a change in the way things are dealt with long term in this world, honestly. So let's start with the Pope and some of what he has said about what's going on in Iran.
I would simply say, once again, what I said in the Urbi et Orbi message on Sunday, asking all people of goodwill to search always for peace and not violence, to reject war, especially a war which many people have said is an unjust war, which is continuing to escalate and which is not resolving anything. In fact, we have a worldwide economic crisis, energy crisis, situation in the Middle East of great instability, which is only provoking more hatred throughout the world. So come back to the table, let's talk, let's look for solutions in a peaceful way, and let's remember especially the innocent, children, the elderly, the sick, so many people who have already become or will become victims of this continued warfare. To remind all that attacks on civilian infrastructure is against international law, but that it is also a sign of the hatred, the division, the destruction that the human being is capable of, and we all want to work for peace.
Okay, I have so many problems with what he just did there. I hesitate to attack it right now. So let's do a little bit of Trump's response, Christy, and then we'll address some of what he said there. But to me, listening to his comments, we should tackle it right now. I've got to tackle it right now. All right, so here's my problem with him. So you listen to what he says there in an unjust war, and he says innocent people being hurt. Does he not realize the government of Iran has spent 47 years murdering their own people in the streets? 30,000 people this year alone they killed. And innocent people, women, children, whoever had the temerity to stand up against them.
And in just this war, they're spraying missiles to every country around them, to civilian populations. I mean, it's an outrageous and frankly ignorant statement to make.
I think it was. And I think not only that, I think you look at what this is and he says, some would say an unjust war. He sounds like a politician. Instead of realizing what he's really talking about here, where the innocence that is being stolen here, the lives that are being destroyed of the innocent are by the Iranians, and the victims are their own people when they're not the Americans. And how he doesn't realize that, I don't know. And so this is as pointed as I've heard him be. And to me, it just reeks as somebody who is coming out and has his own political beliefs and is trying to wrap them in the church. And as a Catholic, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Now, I don't like the way Trump responded. We'll get to that in just one second. But when you listen to Pope Leo here, he sounds like a politician. And so what you'll hear from Trump is Trump obviously goes after him as if he is a politician. But I think for the most part here, I was shocked to just listen to unjust war, innocents being killed like the United States is doing that. And by the way, we have not bombed their infrastructure. But some of this gets back to Trump, and Trump saying we may bomb their infrastructure, right?
Yeah,
and so that's where he gets that from. Yeah. So he's not pulling it out of nowhere. But again, I found his comments to be incredibly uninformed on this, and I think it's bad for the church.
Or informed in a way that is one-sided, is deeply one-sided, which we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But let's first take a listen to Trump's reaction to Pope Leo on this video first, and then we'll read a little bit of his statement.
We don't like a pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want a pope that says crime is okay in our cities. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. He's a very liberal person, and he's a man that doesn't believe in stopping crime. He's a man that doesn't think that we should be toying with a country that wants a nuclear weapon so they can blow up the world. No, I'm not a fan of Pope Leo.
Trump, right?
No minced words there. Let's look at his statement here just a little bit. Let me just read a little bit off the top of his actual statement too. It says Pope Leo is weak on crime. I mean, I'm sorry, is Leo running for office? I'm just checking really quickly.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
And terrible for foreign policy. He talks about fear of the Trump administration, but doesn't mention the fear that the Catholic Church and all other Christian organizations had during COVID when they were arresting priests, ministers, and everybody else for holding church services, even when going outside and being 10 and even 20 feet apart. I like his brother Louis much better than I like him because Louis is all MAGA. He gets it, and Leo doesn't. I don't want a pope who thinks it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
Okay.
So, and he goes on and on and on from there. But that's kind of the gist from Trump talking Pope Leo there.
Okay, again, Trump is inartful in the way he handles this stuff. There's no question. I don't think he needed to say those things. There's no doubt. But I also believe that what you have now is you have a Catholic leadership that is mobilized in a political way that I have never seen before. And so to me, when that happens, it's game on. And the problem is, I have no problem with them being involved. We've talked about this before. I think faith leaders have to step into issues like this. They do. And if they don't agree with me, I can live with that completely. But you can't do it from a place of ignorance and to say, well, there is this word war attached to it, so therefore the warriors are the bad guys and Iran's the good guy. Iran? I mean, a theocracy, a Muslim theocracy, they're the good guys? Is that what this is? And we're the bad guys, Leo? That's what I had a problem with.
So here's the real question, you guys, is where is Pope Leo getting all these messages from? Because it sounds like to me, he is like being campaigned, so to speak. He's meeting with some consultants.
He's on some talking points.
He's got some talking points. And what's interesting is he's had a meeting with David Axelrod, who was, Obama's consultant, if I'm correct? Is that right? Is that right? And just for the record, I don't believe David Axelrod is Catholic. So it's interesting that he would be carving out some time to go meet up with Pope Leo. Let's take a listen to this.
Show you, Marie, who popped up on the Pope's audience list today. Any day that he's meeting with people, their names are posted, as you might imagine. And the name that popped up got a lot of people talking that the two are planning a meeting or maybe something more. This is the list of those getting a private audience with the Pope today. Beneath the archbishops and Paralympians, the name David Axelrod, one-time senior aide to President Obama, who 6 weeks ago said,
being president or even being an ex-president, I can kind of meet everybody. So I've met a lot of folks.
Yeah.
The person who I have not yet met and that I'm looking forward to meeting, and I hope I get an opportunity sometime in the future, is the new Pope, who is from Chicago and a White Sox fan.
Axelrod hasn't detailed what they talked about, but a few things to consider. His former boss is just 2 months out from opening his presidential center here on Chicago's South Side. Meantime, the Pope has been as vocal as any of his predecessors about American war.
Reject war, especially a war which many people have said is an unjust war.
In recent months, the Vatican has said the Pope's unlikely to come to the U.S. this year because it's an election year. So what's really going on?
It's a surprise. Obviously, he's not someone you would expect to meet with Pope Leo XIV.
Christopher Hale is writing a book on the Pope and American politics. He says all signs point to that meeting the president wanted.
We're not 100% sure that this is connected to that, but the timing is auspicious.
What do you think
Well, it's
about
interesting. The Pope then comes out and sounds like Axelrod on CNN the next couple days. So.
No, I think it's absolutely true. And I think you start seeing more of this. And this is a coordinated campaign. So it didn't stop there with Axelrod going to visit him. By the way, it's one thing, too, for Joe Biden to go visit him. Joe Biden's a Catholic. Okay, it's one thing for even Dick Durbin to go visit him, a Catholic. Again, both of them very much not on the life side of the issue, but whatever, right? Whatever. But for David Axelrod, who has no connection to the Catholic Church, and to get an audience with the Pope is a little unusual, to say the least. But whatever, the Pope meets with all sorts of different people. So then this continues, and on Sunday night, on 60 Minutes, 3 cardinals line up to lay into Trump. Here we go again. The church is completely now, the leadership of the church is mobilized going after Trump. And so Cardinal Kepich, I think it's Kepich.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Is it?
Kepich, yeah.
You think it's Kepich?
Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Okay. So Cardinal Kepich, he is the same guy who's tried to give guys like Dick Durbin a lifetime leadership award. One of the most staunch advocates for abortion in the country. Okay, but apparently that's not a big deal to the church. But just listen to what he says on 60 Minutes here, and then I'll get you guys to react to it.
There's a real sadness in our people, in the nation, because we know that we're better than this when it comes to how we treat immigrants as an immigrant nation, how we also agree with people who suffer around the world, who live in poverty, especially when we have cutbacks in aid that helps people who are living in really dire circumstances, but also in terms of what's going on with the war, that especially as it's being portrayed as a video game, as entertainment. People deep down are sad that they know that we are better than this, and they want to recapture the dignity once again of being an American.
Okay, he sounds exactly like a politician. He literally comes out for USAID, okay? Instead of saying, wait a minute, instead of understanding that, first of all, Americans have been ripped off to the tune of billions of dollars. People can barely get to the end of the month. And this guy sounds like he was just elected on the south side of Chicago to be their House of Reps member. It's unbelievable. And then he talks about the war he has a problem with. This is just leftist rhetoric from these guys. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it is. And you've seen it. You said, I mean, you have your own story with it. I mean, the Catholic Church, I think a lot of people have problems with it because they have gotten political on issues. It is one thing for the church to come out, and the leaders of the church, I mean, to come out and say they want peace and to talk about that. And obviously like this coming out, those are political talking points very clearly. And some would argue, particularly with them, that they're aimed at building, the church. Or
a wall between conservatives.
Right.
And
They're
church.
appealing. It's an appeal. It's a political motive for it. And it's going to turn people off. The other thing I note is where's the left to scream about the lack of separation from church and state?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
You have a conservative church leader come out and say something, they scream bloody murder.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think what we've been saying, too, and what we shared a little bit on the last show is, and this stems from when you ran, is our hope when people run for office is, especially conservatives on the conservative side, who talk about their faith, talk about pro-life issues, talk about issues that have to deal with gender and things that are really laid out very clearly in Scripture on where God stands on these issues. They're not political issues per se. They're biblical issues, right? And so what we've been saying is what we would love to see is pastors be able to talk about issues that relate to Scripture from the pulpit. Not get in there and they don't have to campaign for somebody. They don't have to pick a party. They don't have to say, they just have to say, these are the issues that are at stake right now. And unfortunately, from our experience, there was no pro-life discussion from the pulpit when it came to the Catholic Church based on direction that they were given here in the state.
Well, hold on. So let's get to that absolutely right now. Let's do it. Because let's talk about this, Christy, and then we'll get into exactly what you're talking about right here.
Okay.
So the Archbishop slams Trump for posts about Pope Leo. Archbishop Wester. Okay, we have a story about him, which we'll talk about in just a second. But I want you to listen to, again, political operative Archbishop Wester, because that's what he sounds like in this article in the Albuquerque Journal. So here's some of what he said.
President Donald Trump's Sunday night social media attack on Pope Leo suggests that the president views religion as, quote, political cudgel rather than an instrument of peace, Santa Fe Archbishop John Wester said Monday. Trump on Sunday unleashed a lengthy post criticizing the Pope as weak on crime and terrible for foreign policy, and calling on Pope Leo to end his criticisms of the president's military actions in Iran and Venezuela. Quote, the Pope has every right to speak about peace and dialogue and discussion to solve our problems rather than going to war or using power or might or violence, Wester said on Monday in a phone interview.
Okay, one quick thing on that. Bishop Wester has the ability to be able to bring up ridiculous ends to different means. In other words, how do you think we are going to solve problems and get peace and dialogue with people who know nothing but murder? That's what these people do. Right. That's their playbook, Bishop Wester. Do you think you get to walk into them and say, hey, we really think you should be peaceful?
There's a lot of suffering in Venezuela and a lot of poverty in Venezuela. And we should have just left that.
We should have left it.
Just let it keep going.
Iran's the same thing.
Yeah,
Let's let them keep killing people.
Right.
Yeah.
Because these guys don't want war.
Let them keep killing the infidels.
Yes. Yeah. Let them keep mowing down the infidels till there are none of them left. Because that's the goal.
And they have about just for the record, they've been doing a little bit of investigating into Iran myself, and there's about 5 million Christians in Iran right now. And so, there's no talk of that from the Archbishop or Pope Leo.
No, why would you?
Is the fact that movement is largely underground. And so, so it's not just, folks of the Muslim faith that are being attacked over there either. It is Christians that are being attacked as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, let me continue this.
Keep going.
Wester is one of many Christian leaders who has pushed back, including Pope Leo himself. On his flight to Algeria on Monday, Pope Leo told journalists, quote, I have no fear of the Trump administration speaking out loudly of the message of the gospel, which is what I'm here to do and what the church is here to do. I don't want to get into a debate with Trump. Wester said Pope Leo's criticism appears to be getting under the president's skin. Quote, I think the president's post kind of indicates that perhaps the Pope is getting to the heart of the matter and the president doesn't like that, Wester said, suggesting that Pope Leo's comments are making Trump feel a little uncomfortable and defensive. I guess certain people, when they think they're the center of the universe, they think everything revolves around them. But that's just not true, he said.
Okay, that is just straight
political.
That is just political garbage from him. Mm-hmm. Okay, and let me just say this about Wester. My problem with Wester goes way back. Okay, it goes back to the 2022 campaign. So I'll tell this quick story with him, and that he has been a political being in this state since he got here to be the Archbishop. So in 2022, we were at a small church in rural New Mexico. And after the Mass was over, because we would stop in and go to Masses at various places where we could, the priest came out and we had a really nice discussion. And he literally said to me, is God's honest truth, we're standing there, and he said, I and many in this congregation really support you. He said, but I can't talk about big issues.
And remember what the issue was.
The issue was abortion.
Because the Dobbs issue had just been
And he said
down.
he was specifically told by church leadership, Archbishop Wester, not to speak about the life issue to his congregants. I'm sorry, but you go and say these things, and then you come out and act like you are wrapped in Christ as you're doing this, and you don't even stand up for your own people and allow them to be educated about what's going on with the life issue in this state.
And the problem is when they do it, it's always one way. It's always on one side. And I go back to when Governor Martinez was in office, the predecessor to the Archbishop, she got in a public fight over the issue of driver's licenses for illegal immigrants because somehow he decided to fight her over that. The first Hispanic woman governor in the history of the United States was being divisive, and he decided to speak out on that. And she publicly fought him on it. But that's my problem, is it's always one side.
Yeah.
And that tells you it's not an honest thing about issues, because it would fall either way. It's coming down, and you can tell by the tone, especially the last. These are political talking points. That's a political hit.
Right. And I mean, again, a pastor or priest's job is to dictate their flock, so to speak, based on what Scripture says about an issue, right? So you're not really supposed to be. And there's plenty of God-fearing wars. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit later in the show too. So to cower behind and say, we can't try to seek peace by going into and having war. That's just not actually historically true or biblically true. So we'll talk about that in just a few minutes.
No, you're right. And I think the other thing is, look, there is a message here, a very clear message that the Pope could send. He could say, I don't like war. I don't like it at all. But I also understand that there are innocent people losing their lives. And the tough part about being a politician is you have to be able to make a choice and put people's lives in danger while trying to save others' lives. That is a very difficult thing, but as a church leader, I want life to be saved whenever possible. And I hope the end result of this, whatever it is more innocents being saved.
Well, and if you're going to be so proud of the innocents being saved, then give me a break when it comes to the life issue than not talking about it. You cannot talk out of both sides of your mouth. I mean, I just think that that's a really unfortunate situation. I do believe, Mark, you lost by 44,000 votes out of over 800,000 votes. If people had been bold enough, if priests had been allowed to be bold enough to speak about the life issue, because there was a pro-life candidate and there was a pro-abortion candidate on that ballot. It was very plain and simple. And if you just spoke about the biblical perspective of the policy, you wouldn't even have to have mentioned your name. You would have had to mention the issue. And yet to be told, you're not going to talk about this. Nobody can talk about this. What a shame. And at the end of the day, what really matters is what Christ thinks about what message you're putting out there. And to me, that's the end game for these guys, is I'm like, you're going to have to answer even more so than the rest of us, because you take on the priesthood. You take on a pastoral role. You're judged stricter. It says it in Scripture. So good luck passing that one off. Like, I don't even know how you have that conversation between you and the big man when you go on.
Okay.
Sorry.
Right,
let's keep talking about Vance now.
Yeah. So, what's that?
We get to Vance on the boat.
Yeah. JD Vance talked about this issue on Tuesday, and he is a Catholic as well. And here's what he said about this thought. And apparently, what has happened here is Pope Leo has had a quote attributed to him, which I was able to get verification on, that God does not support those who basically lead us into war. Okay, and here's what the Vice President says about that.
When the Pope says that God is never on the side of those who wield the sword, there is more than a 1,000-year tradition of just war theory. Okay? Now, we can, of course, have disagreements about whether this or that conflict is just, but I think that it's important, in the same way that it's important for the Vice President of the United States to be careful when I talk about matters of public policy, I think it's very, very important for the Pope to be careful when he talks about matters of theology.
Okay, so let's see really what is he getting at here, and what is he talking about? Well, first of all, there's a long history in the Bible of God supporting those who have to go into war, in righteous war. It's all over the place, okay? It's everywhere, from David and Goliath all the way up to the book of Joshua, book of Samuel, book of Judges. It's all in there. It's not hard to find. It's not hard to find at all, okay? So now the question then becomes, okay, if we're going to shift then to the Gospels in what Jesus said, and there's no question that there's some differences there, and I will say this, and this is the point I want to make about this. I think one of the most applicable verses in the Bible on this is, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Okay? That Jesus clearly says this, and I think we all support this. The question is, are you a peacemaker to watch a country mow over and kill its own people and threaten us endlessly for 47 years? Should we sit there and just say, okay? And by the way, should you not do anything about a country that says they want to wipe out God's chosen people? Their number one goal is to eliminate the Jews.
And let them get a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
I mean,
give them every
we've
means
tried
possible.
everything. We've got, all the negotiations. Obama tried to buy them off, and it hasn't worked. So what do? You just sit back and wait? Like, is that the answer? I mean, it's obviously those of us who believe in peace through strength, and you can have different, arguments on conflicts or this war or that war, but at the end of the day, it becomes necessary at times. It's just morality. If you're for peace.
Yeah.
Because that's peace through strength.
And there is a difference between what we are doing and what the Iranians do. You mentioned where they're lobbing missiles on innocent people. We have not done that. We don't do that. We're trying to weaken a military that has so much blood on its hands. I don't think there's another equivalent country in the world for death to its own people than the Iranians are.
I mean, look at the values in this conflict. You have the Iranians shooting missiles at all over the place, slaughtering people. Look what we did for one life, for the pilot. And that's an American value. That's a value, that's a Christian value.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that church leaders can't be advocating peace, but what he was doing there, I would argue that's all political. The political speak, especially the Archbishop, these are political talking points. These are hit jobs.
Yeah. I would be interesting to see what this guy would talk about with World War II. It'd be really interesting to see.
Is that not a just war?
I mean,
was that not a just war?
Because again, it's we got involved in that for many reasons, but primarily to take out Hitler, who was, killing Jews, innocent people over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, now we're trying to help another country. There's a lot to this one, right? There's a lot of layer to this one. I'm not going to pretend there's not.
He doesn't need to support the war.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. I don't think anyone was saying
he can advocate for peace, but that's, I would argue that it's a political talking point, the way he's, especially trying to claim like we're the bad guys in this.
Right.
The United States are the bad guys. And that's
and his whole little thing of, some would say, that is such political
that is a
garbage.
media question that they love to ask because they don't want to say,
argue.
Well, some would say you're terrible.
You're an awful human being, and we hate you. Okay, all right. So one of the big issues, and Jay, you mentioned it a little bit here, one of the big issues that we've seen with the Catholic Church and some of their criticisms of Trump have been the immigration issue. Tom Homan, also a Catholic. Again, there are plenty of Catholics for Leo to talk to. He doesn't need to go to Axelrod. But anyway, here's what he said about this issue and about the Pope.
I'm not going to speak for the president. I'm speaking for myself, a lifelong Catholic. I wish they stay out of immigration. They don't know what they're talking about. Because if they wore my shoes for 40 years and talked to a 9-year-old girl that got raped multiple times, or stood in the back of a tractor trailer with 19 dead aliens at my feet, including a 5-year-old boy that baked to death, if they understood the atrocities that happen on an open border, I think their opinion would change. And I welcome a discussion with any of them because they don't understand. Illegal immigration is not a victimless crime. Would President Trump have the most secure border in the lifetime of this nation right now? Lives are being saved. He's saving thousands of lives a year because he has a secure border. Human traffickers are out of business, right? The cartels are going bankrupt because of that secure border. I wish they'd understand that, because if they did, I think they have a different opinion.
I think I just couldn't agree with him more on this.
100%.
I mean,
and what is the Pope doing on these other countries' immigration laws and policies? Like, no one lets everybody in.
Yeah, it's like there's
but
laws
it becomes,
everywhere.
it's an easy hit to attack Trump and try to build a church. Do you talk to Mexico about their immigration policy? What happens when
Canada,
people from Nicaragua
anyways,
come across?
Yeah. Anybody, every other country has border laws.
Right.
Every single one. I'm not sure why America is getting so trash talked when they are like, you actually are enforcing the laws.
I didn't know you could just walk into the Vatican.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course you can't, but no, of course you would never be able to do that. And that's part of the problem here too, is that these guys don't realize that the amount of people that are trafficked and the amount of kids that are trafficked into sex trafficking, they just have the luxury of being able to ignore that behind their own walls.
It is outrageous. And you've been down to the border. If you go down and you understand what happens to the people who are across there trafficked and what ends up happening, especially the women and to the children, and then to get here and the atrocities that occur. And then on the sanctuary issues, who are they praying against? They're mainly the immigrant community. So you're acting like you're defending immigrants by allowing murderers and rapists to stay in their neighborhoods. It doesn't make any sense.
No. I guess I'm curious, like, what is your take? Like, do you think, I think we're talking about Pope Leo today because of what Trump did, right? That's my opinion anyway. Yeah. If Pope Leo had said all this stuff and Trump had just not responded and not said anything, I don't know if that many people, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, Mark. Obviously, I'm not Catholic, but so I don't wake up and find out what Pope Leo said, right? Like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's not something I look for in leadership for myself. So I'm just curious, is this shining a brighter light on Pope Leo because of what Trump's doing? I'm saying yes, right? Like,
yeah. And I think, but this gets back to, and this is where Trump deserves some criticism on this, is that the way Trump handles this in a ham-fisted way, it escalates the rhetoric. And instead, most church leadership would not escalate. But now he is. Leo is escalating. His Cardinals are escalating. So then it's like, okay.
Well, we're getting our Cardinals on 60 Minutes for crying out loud.
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
Right. And this might be exactly what they want.
Yep.
Because if you're promoting an organization and all of a sudden you're creating this and all of a sudden he's the fighter for, that's what the president walks into sometimes by responding.
I agree. But again, President Trump could have said in this particular case, look, while I appreciate that the Holy Father has an opinion, I have a bigger responsibility. And he could lay out and say, we will not let innocents continue to die. We can't. And the Pope can advocate for that. You want to walk the Pope into a mess? Just be like, look, if the Pope would like to advocate for the Iranian government, I guess he can continue to do that. But I will not. I will not let the Iranians kill another person under that deadly regime. And the Pope clearly wants them to keep doing it, I guess. I don't know. Like, if you want to get into that, you can. But I just think it's one of those things where we have not seen an escalation like this from the church in my lifetime. And they
that's what I was wondering, because I was like, obviously, again, not raised Catholic. I was like, what are Catholics that have been raised Catholic? Does a Pope typically jump in on topics like this? Like, this is
not in this kind of
I've never seen it
way.
like this abrasive.
Yeah.
It just
and I'm
seems...
not talking about Trump's response, which obviously is Trump's response. It's always abrasive.
Yes.
I'm talking about what the Pope said and with Archbishop, these are really harsh statements.
No,
these are political statements.
Yeah, they really are. Okay, I want to get into one other quick thing here. We got to really move quickly because we've gone a long time on this.
Okay.
But I think part of my real problem with this is that he is so direct the bishops are so direct, or the cardinals are so direct, right? No, bishops and the cardinals in this particular case are so direct. I think that's what bothers me, because when you look at some of these other issues, like say the Christians being slaughtered in Nigeria, I mean, the Pope has been, he has not come out and laid down the line and said, this is unacceptable. We cannot have this in this world. He's had a lot of really sort of mealy-mouthed statements, like Christians and Muslims have been slaughtered, he said. There certainly is a danger for Christians, but for all people, he said. And so he sort of is really...
They're soft.
They're
it's a
really
soft statement. Yeah.
And I think that's what bugs me about so much of this is that his statements have been soft. So it takes somebody who's actually an atheist to come out and say what's happening in Nigeria is completely and totally unacceptable. And that's Bill Maher. And Bill Maher was stronger than the Pope? Really?
The fact that this issue has not gotten on people's radar.
Right, no one's talking about it.
It's pretty amazing. If you don't know what's going on in Nigeria, your media sources suck. You are in a bubble. And again, I'm not a Christian, but they are systematically killing the Christians in Nigeria. They've killed over 100,000 since 2009. They've burned 18,000 churches. This is so much more. These are their Islamists, Boko Haram. This is so much more of a genocide attempt than what is going on in Gaza. They are literally attempting to wipe out the Christian population of an entire country. Where are the kids protesting this?
It's absolutely, I mean, he's dead on.
Yeah.
Dead on. And instead of the Pope calling it what it is, a Muslim sect trying to wipe out Christians, he won't do it. He won't do it.
And why? I guess to me, I don't know. I mean, I honestly can't get.
That's their goal.
I know. I'm having a hard time. I just think this would make me question. And you and I were talking about this last night, Mark, is I said, obviously I don't want to offend any Catholics that are out there because I have a lot of good friends that are, really religious Catholics and just the strongest people of faith that I've known, including my in-laws who, I never want to offend anybody that has a real faith.
Your in-laws have a problem with this too.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is I'm like, I don't know how you sit by and think this is the guy that's supposed to be telling us what he's supposed to have some direct connection to God, apparently, right? Is that right? Is that fair to say? Like he's supposed to be having more of like a message from God to deliver to the Catholic people, correct?
Vicar of Christ.
Okay, so it's like, well, I mean, I just find this to be unbelievable. It's a weird dynamic. It would make me lose a little bit of faith, I guess, quite frankly. And maybe that's why I don't put
your faith is in Christ and not in the Pope.
Correct.
I mean, that's a fact.
That's correct.
There's the difference.
I mean, and guys, I'm sorry we went on so long on this.
Let's move on.
Yeah, we can move on. And we'll get to one other story by the time we're done here. We won't have time for anything else. But this really bothers me because we had just talked about this with Elle on the show, and that I just think as a faith leader, I think you have to stand up. And I get it. The whole Trump thing is you mix Trump into anything, and it makes a toxic stew for some people. I get that. But this is what we're talking about now is such an inversion of honesty and goodness, honestly. I just feel like what we're trying to do here, and you have, if we don't call out certain governments and certain extremists for what they are in their effort to try to exterminate Christians and Jews, I'm sorry. Then what are we here for? So if you don't like what we're saying today, I'm sorry about that. But I can't just let this kind of go and act like everything's okay, because it's not okay. You've got literally tens of thousands of people being slaughtered in a country that is constantly threatening us and constantly threatening to wipe Israel off the map. And we're the bad guys for going to war.
Yeah, and again, I think Pope Leo is forgetting the people that were celebrating in Iran when we came in there and took out those leaders, because they've been held hostage for 47 years by these same terrorists. So the fact that, there is a certain level of freedom in Iran now for those folks, I mean, they're still trying to obviously figure out this next regime that's going to come up. I just think it's interesting. It's like, Pope Leo, why don't you speak for those folks that have actually been walking, breathing, living it every single day? And that's just my 2 cents. Okay, let's move on, you guys, because, Jay,
I don't know why you brought me here for this.
I
thought we were talking about campaigns.
Jay, as much as you are the expert on all things
I'm a
Catholic.
former Catholic, so
Okay, but let's talk a little bit about the New Mexico governor candidates. It's getting heated. I mean, it's the money is coming in for one side. It appears to me, Jay. I know so little about campaigning. I'm no expert like you, but here's a headline for you. New Mexico governor candidates have already spent $10 million on race, with Holland still outraising rivals. Reports filed this week suggest this year's open race for governor could be the most expensive in state's history. I feel like they say that every single
year. I was going to say
year.
That,
I don't know.
Come on, Dan
boy. That's
come up
the
with something
same
new.
thing.
I don't know that it will be.
I don't
honestly.
either. Your guys' race was pretty fat.
I don't think it will, especially because the DJ and RGA, what they spent.
Well, not going to. Yeah, they're not going to be involved. All right, let's get into some numbers here. I want to show you guys some numbers that we have, and I want to touch on these, and then we'll get into each person. But let's start on the Democratic side because that's where they're actually raising money. So here we go. Deb Haaland has raised in the past 6 months $4.1 million. She's raised a total of $11.1 million, and she's got $4 million on hand. Jay, what would you do if your candidate had raised $11 million by April and you had only $4 million on hand?
Well, I'd hope I'd be in the Bahamas at like my place. But like,
unreal.
What would you do if you raised 11 and I'm like, hey, Mark, we only got 4 left?
Yeah, I'd be like,
don't worry about it.
I'd be like,
so mad.
I'd be like, Jay's fired if this is the case.
Okay, we'll get into lining her up on this in just a second. But let's get to Bregman. Bregman has raised $1.2 million in the last 6 months. Not paltry by any stretch. $3.7 million total raised. He's got $850 cash on hand. Okay, so now let's get into what the real problems are in each campaign if you're running each campaign on this side first before we get to the Republicans. So if you're on Deb's staff here, to me, Jay, I'm looking at this going, how in the world are we burning through this much money this quickly? But there's a reason why, right?
Yeah,
her digital people are making a ton of money.
I'm sure they have outrageous contracts on everything and retainers and that aside, that part of it. A lot of it, though, is they are prospecting. They're trying to get new donors.
Which is point three on here.
Yeah, it's an
if you look
expensive
at
thing.
The thing, you can see that right there.
So look at that.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to find new donors. So, you know, you could spend $3 and you raise $1, for example. Early on.
Yep.
And you're getting new donors. And the hope is that once the campaign gets going, then you're no longer prospecting. You go to those new donors you found, and all of a sudden you're flipping that, and you're raising a ton of money with very little expense. So her hope is she turns to the general. She spent all that money finding donors, turns around, and all of a sudden she shows $5 million in extra report. You know, on these coming from new donors. So
and I think really though, if you're being honest about her having $4 million at this point in the primary, a normal candidate, let's say she hadn't raised 11. Let's say she raised 7 and she had 4. She's coming into this thing with 4. That's a lot of money. And I think what it shows you is this prospecting effort may well be paying off.
Yeah, and you think it will, and because she'll be able to do the major donor program also, because she's seen as the front runner. So she's going to be able to get a high dollar
report doesn't show that right now.
Right. So they're going to be able to go get that anyway. And I think this small dollar, they could have a huge, and I didn't go through a report extensively, but they're probably trying to create a national network also.
They are. And I will say it's a ton of small dollar.
Right. And so they'll be able to, she's going to be able to raise a ton of money.
Okay, let's get into the differences between Haaland's fundraising and Bregman's fundraising.
Hold on. So Showboat comes up with something that I think is amazing.
Let's take a look at this.
So this is what Showboat did. Now, Haaland's donors are the small dollar type. It is impressive. Okay, that part of it is impressive. There's no question about that. And your rank and file liberals basically is who she's got, who she's tapping into. Now, Showboat's doing something different. He's decided he's going to go to big oil and get a ton of money, which to me is death for him. Because if you're her, you're looking at his donor list, you're crafting an ad, you buy 500, maybe 1,000 GRP rating points, and you'll bury Bregman with it. Because what you do is you say, this guy's gone to big oil, you support me, this guy gets support from big oil. That is like me going to Planned Parenthood and the Sierra Club and saying, hey, guys, help me out in the Republican primary. And the Sierra Club's like, okay. And then someone running against me would be like, yeah, you got donations from the Sierra Club. We're not giving you the nomination as a Republican. It's a crazy move.
Yeah, I never understood the strategy. Obviously, he's got to raise money from somewhere. You'd hope he'd just call his son and say, let's do it.
Yeah.
Because that is going to be a big hit. I think Showboat has a lot of problems. Like, they can kind of hit Showboat from wherever they want to go because he's been on every side of every issue. Mm-hmm. But this in particular, to Democratic primary voters, you got to remember the audience. These are people who want to get oil and gas out of New Mexico.
Yeah, totally.
These are the voters we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Go down to Nob Hill and, wear a big Chevron shirt and see what happens.
Well, I actually said to him last night, I was talking to Mark, I was like, but come on. Like, everybody that actually knows anything about the state knows that you need oil and gas to fund the state.
Not true.
And Mark said...
You look at... Yeah, go ahead.
No, you guys go. Like, that's what I said.
You look at the actual numbers. We've polled the numbers. They don't believe it. They hate
primary
oil and
voters,
gas.
not Democratic.
Where do they
primary
think the
voters.
money
No.
comes from? I'm just curious.
The
Falls
rich.
from the sky?
The rich.
Oh, they're
They
just gonna,
just say that the wealthy.
they're
the
gonna
rich.
they're just gonna tax the rich in New Mexico.
when they kick them out. But
Oh
don't
yeah,
worry about
exactly.
that.
Only
No,
4
but
of them.
I'm telling you, it is toxic, and you've actually seen this before. When Republican oil and gas gets involved in Democratic primaries and they get exposed for it, they get killed. The one time we were very successful in Democratic primaries is we timed the donation so we didn't have to report until right before the election, and we won 6 out of 7 of the seats. But the minute they find out oil and gas is there, it's one of the pieces they do every year.
Yeah.
I was shocked. So I saw some polling probably 6 months ago that was done. It was a independent firm that did this polling. It was for an oil and gas interest. And they wanted to know, how much do people support a ban on fracking? How much do Democrats support a ban on fracking? They are in to the tune of like 75%.
Jeez
so
Louise.
it is crazy.
Yeah, you have to, especially in the Democratic primary voters are going to be your most liberal on this.
Yes.
Your most.
So why would Bregman
leftist.
go to the oil
You
and gas
can't
guy?
He thinks he's smarter than everybody.
Yeah, because Showboat, when Showboat talks, everybody goes, "Whoa, I love the Showboat," and then you figure out the minute Showboat gets hit with a real ad. If Holland wants to burn him down to 30%, she can.
Yeah, I mean,
if she wants to, I don't know if she
can go
wants
from
to.
any direction on him.
Yeah.
You know, like he's. Think about it. When he announced and he was talking, he criticized the left in his announcement. Who does that?
He was on a horse
and now,
with
just think where he
chaps.
was. He's criticizing the left because he's going to be Mr. Moderate, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, fast forward to now, he's running ads against ICE.
Yeah.
Okay, that is Showboat Sam.
Yeah.
That's what he's going to do. Because
Yeah.
he figured out, wait, I can't criticize the left when that's who's voting for
That's
me.
Right.
and then the whole thought process of, oh, you know what? I'm going to get independents and Republicans to vote in the Democratic primary. There is not a place in the country where you get more than about 10% of the total electorate in your primary to do that. And even that is not going to be the case in New Mexico because we're so new to it, right? So there's no way he's getting the kind of crossover that's going to carry him across the line. It's the reason we said the 15 points he was down in the last poll that was leaked to us, that's as close as he's going to get. He's going to get, that gap's going to get bigger, not smaller.
Right. So he's got, I mean, who knows? Maybe Alex comes in with a big check, but he's got a problem because if you're Holland and you're sitting there, I can always take him out. You know that. We've been in a couple primaries like that where we knew if someone got close, we could take him out.
Yeah.
And she knows. She's probably, and who knows, there's a lot of cards, but there's a lot of directions she could choose to go.
But his son can't come in and just save the day. They're all capped, right? There's
He
limitations.
can create an IE. He can create an IE.
Yeah,
look at you guys. Okay,
yeah.
look at you
He
guys.
can go
Yeah.
unlimited amount of money. Now they can't allegedly directly, communicate with the campaign,
Oh,
but
that
you
would
can
be
get
sweet.
somebody really good to be like, okay, go out there and bury Holland, but it's going to take $10 million to do it.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, it won't take that much, but it would take a lot, and I think it's just what this comes down to for him is this incorrect belief that you start buying your own BS, and when you start talking and saying, well, I'm going to do it. Look, in the state of New Mexico, the primary is dominated on the Democratic side by people who are extremely far left. There's no way you win as the centrist. By the way, you don't win as the centrist on the Republican side either.
It's the same thing.
Unless you have really big name ID and you don't have to, like, we didn't have to go as far to the right as a lot of other people would have.
But I mean, we'll get to the Republicans.
Yeah,
next.
let's talk about the Republicans here, guys, because I know we could talk all day about the Democrats. I gotta say, I am not wowed or impressed with these fundraising numbers on the Republican side. We got Doug Turner in here. He's got 500,000 so far.
And he's only been in the race for
Now,
a
you
few
also got to
months.
look at that number though and understand a lot of that money is double maxes, meaning people who gave primary gave general. So how much of that 500? And what that means is if someone can double max and give you money, max out for the primary, max out for the general, it's reflected in that 500,000. But you can't spend that until the general.
Right.
So he may have $500,000 there. You know, what is it, 350? What is the number he has available for the primary?
Yeah, and if you do look through some of his donor stuff, there are plenty of people who gave the double max, which is like around $12K for each part of the cycle, meaning the primary and the general. So yeah, and again, you can only spend the primary dollars. And so that's going to be interesting for him. So we'll get to Turner in a minute because I think he's the most interesting person in this. So
And
next,
then,
Hull.
Yeah, Hull has raised $145,000 in the last 6 months. Total is $474,000. Come on, Greg. I mean, I'm a little surprised about that.
To what
Duke. Wait. Oh, go ahead, Jay.
Well, he didn't leverage that convention when, like we talked about.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yep.
You had to kind of dominate on that one.
Yep.
Okay, then you got Duke, guys. Arizona Duke. Guy that lives in Arizona talking about running for governor of New Mexico because he knows so much about it. $501,000 from his own account.
Right,
That means
and he got $1,000 from like somebody in Scottsdale. That was the other.
His largest donor outside of himself is from Arizona.
Nice.
Someone
Very
didn't
nice.
think that through. Again, going back to like.
I wonder if all the donations he's made, you guys, for the Democratic candidates, are they going to fund his campaign now?
Yeah.
I mean, are they going to shell some money back his way?
Well,
I mean, because then what we could look is that list of all the Democrats.
Duke is making a big mistake with this.
Okay, so what's that?
Okay, how much is he going to spend? And you hear the number, $1 million, $2 million, and he's just, I'm doing $500,000 here, $1 million there. And what he's doing is he's letting these other candidates get room. And I'll go back to 2010. Alan Way ended up spending over $1 million in the primary, but he'd only put in like 200 here. And with Susana Martinez, we're raising money, and he's only got 250, so we can make arguments to donors and get them on board. If he had put $1 million, wrote that check, and we're sitting there broke, it's really hard to raise money to get donors because they don't want to be on the wrong side. You know this.
Yeah.
If
they want to be where the momentum is.
So Duke putting in 500, I'm just going to just write the check.
Yeah. Just
write the check and scare some of that other money away because Turner raising 500 is not what he wanted to see.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do this. I want to go through.
But wait, really fast.
Yeah,
Does it even matter, you guys? Because this is what I was talking to Mark about. Yes, in our primary for governor back in 2022, it mattered because we had a lot of serious candidates out there that had been in the race a long time. It was an incredibly long race. Holy goodness, guys, it was a long race. If you guys forget that, I'll remind you of how long that race was.
Very true.
So we needed a lot of money to get through that primary. In fact, I remember spending a lot of money to get through that primary, right? These guys, is it going to matter?
It's going to matter. Like it depends on how much money they can spend advertising, and I think I think Duke has. You look at their messaging; it's weird. Going through the messaging, it's very moderate messaging, which is interesting because it gives some people an angle.
Yeah,
if they want to come in, but like Duke doesn't. It doesn't take much money, I don't think. Because Duke, like giving money to Democrats, those donations, those are huge.
That's
without
a huge
anything
deal.
So I don't think it really takes that much money to take Duke out.
Yeah.
And so Duke's got to figure out like how does he survive, and he's going to have to clip everybody else. And I don't know that he has. You go paper scissors rock, like who has a better hit? Right. You look at Turner. He's always kind of been a moderate, but Duke's not going to be able to really hit him there. Right. He has some contracts that are like the who's list of Doge targets, USAID, the UN, stuff like that. But does that beat,
Yeah.
Does that beat all the money that like Duke bankrolling
Democrats?
Probably not.
No.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know how it'll be interesting. And they have to introduce themselves at the same time. And Greg Hull, I think his problem with voters is the same reason he hasn't been able to raise money. Can you create the excitement?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the one thing you can say about Turner is he has raised the money.
Right. So let's go through each candidate and what we try to do here. I think Turner is the interesting thing here. To me, if you're Turner, I think your threat is Duke. And so I think you run that on that 30-second ad, you run 15 seconds of I'm Doug Turner, good guy, business owner. And by the way, this guy Duke is a scoundrel. Like you do the pivot, right? You do the pivot. You do the vote for me, don't vote for him. I don't think you don't have the luxury to be able to run an image spot. All these guys want to run this let me introduce myself to the voters. I think Nella made that mistake. Nella should have been lighting Heinrich on fire the second she got into the race. And instead she did this soft ad about her dad and everything else. No, you've got to go in during the primary, you got to take Duke out if you're Turner, to me. So 15 seconds of positive Doug and 15 seconds to burn Duke to the
questions are
ground.
how much he ends up raising and how many spots, mail or digital, he can do. He has to obviously introduce himself. But I really, in my mind, I don't think that, and I don't have data, they pull it, but I would think it's just not like Duke's going to collapse.
Why?
Because of the donations to Democrats and Republicans.
But who's going to get that word out?
That's what Turner has to do, and he has to decide: do I have enough? Can I? You have to budget it and see.
Yeah.
And then so if you're Duke, you have to kind of and you can tell, in my opinion, Duke's doing his own thing. Like you look at the advertisements where there's.
You mean they don't make sense?
There's newspaper ads out there.
They're very long.
Newspaper
There's
ads
a lot
out
of
there.
words,
Everyone wants to reinvent and say no. All this other stuff fails, so we're going to do it this way. And there's a reason people want to do it that way.
Yeah.
But he's going to have to spend money introducing himself and selling. And he's going to have to defend, not just defend, and it's not going to be enough to defend. I think he's going to have to raise doubts about other candidates.
Let me argue this for Duke, and I don't argue for Duke that often, but if Duke walks in tomorrow, puts $1 million in and starts flooding the airwaves, he's got a chance to jump out in front here.
He does.
And do something. If he'll write the check, I think he's got a chance.
Why is Doug and Hull not hitting Duke on the fact that he's donated so much to Democratic candidates?
I don't think they don't necessarily have to do that now. Like,
why?
You can just do it in May. It's a shorter. No one's on the air because Duke's not forcing them to.
Okay, Jay. I don't know if you know what day it is. It's tax day right now. You've got 2 weeks till May.
Right, but Duke is not forcing him to. He's not running up. That's what I'm saying. He made a mistake. I would be spending and dragging him out, but he's not. So like they can sit back, and it's playing into their hands because if you have less money, you want a shorter race.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's becoming a shorter race, and it's becoming a race where Turner can kind of match him some, and then Hull's over there, and we'll see what happens. And who knows? Maybe they all just say they think they can do it with their positive stuff. And they all try to run that.
Stop it.
Dangerous road.
Yeah,
dangerous road to go.
Well, no, everybody always says, I don't like negative campaigning works. I mean, I'm sorry, but it does work. It's a
debate.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. So I agree. Okay, so on the Republican side, we've kind of touched on Duke. He needs to spend a lot of money now to get himself out front, to hopefully get himself a gap. Turner, to me, has to do do a little maybe image, a little hammer Duke. There you go. If you are Greg Hull, are you hoping that the work that you've done as mayor of Rio Rancho is enough to carry you through because realistically you don't have any money to do anything else?
Or maybe you're hoping that Doug and Duke get in this big fight and all of a sudden you emerge kind of as that alternative.
Okay.
He's got the bigger problem because they don't have enough money to do. He's got to pick a lane and kind of go.
Okay.
I mean, I just think because if Turner and Duke both communicate to a group of voters, Republican primary voters, Turner probably wins that.
Right.
So if you're Turner and you're like, well, we'll just keep this short, and Duke's not on the air doing anything, and he can outspend me 2-1 or whatever, 1.5-1 going down the stretch, I still beat him because of the message difference. Even with he has flaws, but not like.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you guys, early voting is starting pretty soon.
Yeah, no.
And
I get it. Absolutely.
I'm not seeing anything. I'm the girl that's voted in every single small election, big election, whatever. I'm getting nothing. I'm not getting a message. I'm not getting a message.
Yeah, you
on
should
digital.
be getting Republican messages.
I'm not getting anything.
Yeah. But if I'm Turner and I'm Greg Hull, that's what I want because I don't have money for a 3-month campaign, 2-month campaign, maybe a 4-week campaign.
Yeah, well, you got 4 weeks because you got early voting starting. So
you'll see it from him.
Okay, all right.
That's
You're
where
telling
Duke.
me.
He's
made a mistake because he could have had 2 months worth of free air.
Yep.
With no one else, and he could have had some. When he starts getting hit, could have some goodwill, like some force field around him a little.
And
bit.
Listen, look, I'm sure Duke has plenty of money, and that's the thing about rich guys. Okay, they say I'm gonna put in what he said, $1-2 million, right? And then you find out once you start writing those checks, you write that $500,000 first check, and you realize this. And I've said this before about Duke. I know he must have gone into plenty of rooms in this state, and it's been hard. Right? Yeah. You get in that room and it's not fun. You expect people to like you and they don't. And you have to convince them and everything's a struggle. And then writing that second check for another 500 or another $1 million is tough. So if he decides to do it, he's still got 3 weeks probably that he could create a little, what you're saying, a force field to do it. And if he doesn't, then you're probably right. Then this is going to go the way of two different guys, either Turner or Greg Hull. But I will say, I don't know who's winning this thing. Like, you have no idea.
And do you think that, okay, so first, who do you think would win the Republican primary today?
I don't know. Who knows? No one has name ID.
Yeah.
You're talking as yourself as a Republican voter. Like, no one has heard of any of these guys.
Yeah.
Or very little. Like they have.
I mean,
no
I
name
have
idea.
I have heard of them because I know them. I know 2 of them, but that's it. But that I just happen to know because of other things, right? It's not because they've reached out or sent me something or some messaging or like that. I've heard nothing from them. But at the end of the day, I mean, I hate to say this, guys, but like, is it going to matter? Like, is there going to be enough momentum for people to show up at the primary and vote? Like, I'm just feeling this, and maybe it's just because we're not in it. So
I just think there's a lack of interest on the Republican side of the primary. That just is.
Let me tell you why this is. Maybe. Okay. Let me do this real quick before we wrap up because we're way over on time.
Okay.
I want you to just listen to a little bit of polling, and I'm not trying to bring the show down. But here's just a little bit of polling information on the president.
A key group of the president's supporters. Which key group are we talking about?
Which key group are we talking about? Well, it's the group that helped put him in the White House in 2016, and then again in 2024, the group that shifted tremendously from 2012 to 2016 and put him in the White House. We are talking about non-college white voters, and he is sliding right into the water. This is a rut-row moment, to quote the great Scooby-Doo. Trump's net approval rating with non-college whites. Look at this. In February of 2025, it was plus 32 points. Down it goes. Look at Johnny. Johnny is just shocked by this number, and now it is minus 2 points. That is a 34-point shift, and I will note this is an average of polls. This is not just one poll. I've averaged 3 different polls here, 3 big pollsters, and what we see is Donald Trump actually underwater with non-college whites who, of course, put him in the White House. Really moment? Yes, really, John.
Yeah, again, I have to ask really.
Okay, and in the world of nationalized elections now, where when you go to run for a large statewide office, you're tied to the president, that's tough territory. And all the Republican candidates are finding it out when they're trying to raise money. And you're seeing that it's going to be an uphill climb. And so it's going to be tough. I don't think it's impossible, but it's going to be tough.
I mean, I'm just wondering if they're kind of waiting to raise money until they win the primary.
They're not waiting to raise money.
They're not.
I will say this. I'm sure they're busting their butts out there raising money. And it's hard in a primary like this with, multiple candidates. But it's as far as the time for them to get, going, they get a 4-week campaign can all of a sudden interesting go. But the problem is going to be, can you win? And that's what donors are going to be asking. Can you win? And I think that's why they're all being moderate. No one's talking about Trump and this and that because they're worried about getting hit on that in the general election. Guess what? You're going to get hit on it in the general election.
No matter what you say right now.
I think that's crazy. I agree. I mean, you're right. Every single one of these guys is going to be tied to Trump like they're his brother. All right, so there's no way around that. And this whole thought of, we're all just going to kind of float around and not talk about this stuff, then you're not going to get out of the primary. Right. I mean, you're just not. And so there is a little bit of a lack of seriousness in this campaign.
It's like, look at Darren White, okay? Anyone who listened to Darren White on the radio knows he's not a Trumper.
Trump guy.
Yeah.
Look at he was a Trumper. Do you think the media fact checked that?
No.
Yeah.
No. In every, I don't care if a Republican switched parties tomorrow and ran for the state legislature, they're going to be Donald Trump's handpicked candidate. That's what the Democrats are going to do. So you have to figure out a message that beats that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. One more thing. If you're on the Democratic side, Jay, if you're Bregman, what do? Anything?
I think he's doing what you're just hit him on he's trying to do this Epstein hit.
Yeah, the Epstein
obviously.
hit. Yep.
And I mean, the Death Star is going to turn though.
Yeah.
At some point,
he'll get cut.
I would think he's got to count on those independents, which is
it's not happening. Okay, if you're Holland, what are you doing then?
You're going to keep doing what you're doing. I'm sure they're polling weekly or bi-weekly, and they're just going to watch to see if he gets big enough where they have to clip him.
Yep.
And if he does, they'll clip him. If not, they'll just keep running positive throughout and win it.
Okay.
All right. Well, that was a lengthy, beefy show for everybody. You're welcome. Thanks for tuning in today. Hopefully we talked about something that you cared about. And if not, tune back in.
If not, they're not listening. So.
Tune back in. Upcoming this weekend, we'll be back with a new show. Thanks for spending time with us. Go to nodoubtaboutit.podcast.com. Sign up for our emails. If you want to make a donation to the podcast to keep the lights on, we appreciate that. And make some comments. Tell your friends. Like, subscribe. All the good things. We appreciate it. God bless. Have a great rest of your week.
You've been listening to the No Doubt About It podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at No Doubt About It Podcast.
No doubt about it.
The No Doubt About It Podcast is a Choose Adventure Media production. See you next time on No Doubt About It.
There is no doubt about it.